Today we're going to break down a really powerful Lenten reflection. What's so interesting is that it pulls from some pretty ancient wisdom, but it uses it to ask some very modern questions about how we live, what we value, and maybe most importantly, who we choose to see.
Okay, so at the very heart of this whole thing is one fundamental question. And it's a choice that pretty much defines everything that follows, not just in this life, but maybe beyond. And that question is, where do we ultimately place our trust?
You know, this question is laid out so brilliantly in the book of Jeremiah. It describes two very different outcomes, two completely distinct paths a life can take, and it all boils down to that one crucial choice.
And wow, the contrast here is just so stark, right? On one side, you've got the person who puts all their trust in human power, in money, in themselves, and they're described as a barren shrub, dry, alone, not really producing anything. But on the other side, the one who trusts in a higher power is like a tree planted by water, just vibrant, full of life and nourishing. This is so much more than poetry. It's a powerful metaphor, asking us, where do we get our security? Is it from stuff that can disappear in a second, or from something deeper, something that renews itself?
So we have this metaphor, but now the idea gets turned into a full-blown, dramatic story from the Gospel of Luke that shows this exact principle in action. This isn't just an idea anymore. It's a parable about two men whose entire lives and afterlives are completely defined by this choice.
All right, so first up, we meet the rich man. And this guy, he is the picture of worldly success. When you read dressed in purple and fine linen, you've got to understand that was the absolute peak of luxury, the Gucci of its day. He feasted sumptuously every day. It's pretty clear his trust is parked squarely in his wealth and his ability to live this ridiculously extravagant life.
And then, right there at his gate, in a spot he literally could not miss every time he came and went, is Lazarus. And he is the total opposite. A picture of complete poverty, suffering, and humility. And listen to this. He isn't even asking for a seat at the table. He's just hoping for the scraps, the leftovers. He's the guy who has absolutely nothing to trust in but sheer hope.
So you see this stark contrast. But here's the real kicker. The story's warning isn't just about money. It's about the blindness that can come with it. The rich man's biggest mistake, his fatal flaw, was his complete and total disregard for Lazarus. He was so wrapped up in his own luxury that he became blind to the deep human suffering literally on his doorstep. It's a perfect ancient example of what we'd call living in a bubble, right? Where the reality just outside your door becomes totally invisible.
But hold on, because the story is far from over. In fact, you could say the most dramatic part happens after they both die. It's in the afterlife where the consequences of how they live their lives on earth become permanent, and this great reversal happens.
And this line, this is the gut punch of the whole story. The rich man, now in torment, looks over and sees Lazarus in comfort, and he begs for just a single drop of water. But he's told there's a great chasm fixed between them. Think about that. The separation, the gap that he created with his indifference on earth, it's now an eternal, uncrossable reality. The time to show compassion is over.
So all of this brings us right to the core of the reflection, because this isn't just some old story. It's presented as a direct message for us. The real question is, how do these ancient warnings apply to our lives right here and right now? And the source material connects this parable directly to the season of Lent, that period of reflection and repentance in the Christian tradition. It's basically framed as an intentional time to pause, to really search our own hearts, and to ask ourselves, are we creating any chasms in our own lives through our own indifference or lack of compassion? And this really just boils it all down, doesn't it? It's a super clear call to action. First, to actually listen to these warnings. Don't just hear them, heed them. Second, to consciously see and then care for those who are struggling around us. Third, to really let it sink in that our choices matter a lot. They have eternal consequences. And finally, and this might be the most important part, to move beyond simply knowing what the right thing is and to start actively doing it.
So, we're left with the final, really personal question, inspired by the Reflections closing prayer. And it's one for all of us to consider. In a world so full of need, how can we personally move from simple awareness to concrete action? How can we start to bridge the chasms in our own lives through genuine, active compassion for those who are suffering?